I am continuing in my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am continuing reading in a chronological order, according to event, not according to publication or volume, so I'm skipping around a bit as I move along. So our last reading was in section 128 of the Doctrine and Covenants. This was given back in September of 1842. We will now be reading section 129, which is February of 1843. And a few things happen in the intervening months here. Not a lot of big things. Well, there's one kind of big thing, but there's just a lot of stuff going on. So for instance, and I did make an error in a previous video when I said that John C. Bennett would be excommunicated and his whole scandal would come out in 1843. It was actually in 1842. In May of 1842, he is excommunicated for adultery. He had been teaching his spiritual wifery and convincing a number of women to sleep with him based on this idea of free love that everybody is married in the spirit. And so he is excommunicated for adultery. He then goes back east, where he came from, talking to some of the Masons out there who don't know of his scandal in the West, and he is planning a book on exposing Mormonism. Of course, it's all a pack of lies, but that's his plan, and there's some correspondence between Joseph Smith and some men back east regarding this. In addition to this whole controversy going on, there's still opposition building in Illinois. So there is a conspiracy uncovered in Carthage, or around Carthage. And this is, remember that Joseph Smith was arrested on a writ from the Governor Carlin of Illinois, based on a affidavit signed by Governor Boggs about an attempted assassination on the former governor. The governor of Missouri, Governor Reynolds, had requested the extradition of Joseph Smith to Missouri. And Governor Carlin had signed the writ. Now, there was a big thing going on. Eventually, Joseph Smith and others were just released because they couldn't figure out what was going on, basically. But the governor is still trying to enforce this writ. Now, Joseph has his lawyers, one Mr. Butterfield, who says the whole thing is unconstitutional. But there is a conspiracy. The idea is to get Joseph Smith to Carthage to get his writ of habeas corpus, which would be a dismissal of the whole thing. Well, writ of habeas corpus is to call the case before a judge, and the judge determines whether there is legal grounds to actually arrest you. So, but the idea is to get him to Carthage for this writ of habeas corpus, and then when he is released by the judge, the Missouri sheriffs will be waiting outside the court to grab him and take him back to Missouri. So they don't go to Carthage. They actually go to the Supreme Court. Sorry, in the end of 42, we have the election for governor, and Governor Ford is elected. And when he is elected, Joseph Smith goes with his writ of habeas corpus to the governor, who then presents it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court dismisses the case. And that all happens in December, just after the election. At the same time, with the election of the governor, there's also election of a new state legislature, and there is a push to repeal at least portions of the Nauvoo city charter. And this becomes a hot topic in the new legislation. Now, one member of the new House of Representatives is William Smith, Joseph's brother. He is elected for the district of Nauvoo. This is going to start a big controversy that will continue for many months, possibly a couple of years before. It's going to brew and stir up until the death of Joseph Smith, really. But this particular portion of this controversy will last about 6 months. But that's what's going on. And now that brings us up to section 129. Now the heading states this: Instructions given by Joseph Smith the prophet at Nauvoo, Illinois, February 9th, 1843, making known 3 grand keys by which the correct nature of ministering angels and spirits may be distinguished. Recorded in History of the Church, Volume 5, pages 267. Now, I want to mention that these instructions, I think that's a slightly misleading in that this was given as part of a kind of casual conversation between Joseph Smith and Parley P. Pratt. They were out walking in the countryside, talking about things. Besides this instruction, besides this revelation, Joseph Smith also talked about a few experiences he had. Like back in Kirtland, when a man came declaring that he had seen an angel. And he described him to Joseph Smith, and he described what the angel was wearing, and Joseph Smith said, well, that wasn't an angel because angels don't wear those kind of clothes. So the guy got angry, went outside into the street, and started calling for God to drop fire on Joseph Smith's house and burn them all up. And Joseph Smith laughed at him and compared him to the priests of Baal. So other stories like that were being discussed at the same time. But as part of this, we do get these instructions. Let us read section 129. There are two kinds of beings in heaven, namely, angels, who are resurrected personages having bodies of flesh and bones. For instance, Jesus said, handle me and see, for a spirit hath not flesh and bones as ye see me have. Secondly, the spirits of just men made perfect, they who are not resurrected, but inherit the same glory. When a messenger comes, saying he has a message from God, offer him your hand and request him to shake hands with you. If he be an angel, he will do so, and you will feel his hand. If he be the spirit of a just man made perfect, he will come in his glory, for that is the only way he can appear. Ask him to shake hands with you, but he will not move, because it is contrary to the order of heaven for a just man to deceive. But he will still deliver his message. If it be the devil as an angel of light, when you ask him to shake hands, he will offer you his hand, and you will not feel anything. You may therefore detect him. These are three grand keys whereby you may know whether any administration is from God. Now this is a very interesting section. There's some very interesting stuff here. And, it's actually been used in some, I don't know how many people remember the old show, It's a Miracle, by Janice Cat Perry. Music and lyrics by Janice Cat Perry. They make reference to this in a rather comic way. But an angel is resurrected. A ministering spirit is not. They are both still of a celestial glory. But because one is a spirit, he can only appear in spirit and therefore must appear in his glory, because that is the only way that a spirit can appear in the mortal world. The glory is what allows them to appear in the mortal world. If they suppress their glory, they could not be perceived by mortal eyes. An angel, on the other hand, has a physical body and therefore can interact with the mortal world through his physical body without displaying his glory. Because the glory, again, is part of the spirit, not part of the physical. And so he can appear without displaying his glory because he can suppress the spirit within the physical. A devil is also only a spirit, and therefore he can only appear as a spirit. Now, of course, he doesn't have glory, but he can, all spirit has spirit. So it's not glory in the same sense, but it can imitate the glory of a ministering spirit, because they are still both spirits. But the devil will try to deceive, because devils are liars. They cannot help themselves. One might think, well, if he's trying to deceive, why would he shake your hand? Why don't he just act like a ministering spirit? And the reason for that is, if you ask him to shake your hand, the very nature of a devil is to lie. And so they will try and convince you, not that they're a spirit, because they're not going to present themselves as a spirit. They're presenting themselves as an angel of light. And an angel has a body. An angel will react as if he has a body. And therefore the devil will react as if he has a body, because he is trying to lie to you. It is all part of the nature of being a devil, is that they will always lie. Now they'll mix some truth into their message, but their actions, they will always do what is deceptive. They will always try to be deceptive. And it's not even that they're thinking about it. It's that's just the way they are. It's a reflex of a devil to try to be deceptive. And that's how you can detect him, is that you give him the opportunity to reveal himself. That's why he will reveal himself, because he is trying to deceive. I do find it very fun. Now, I have never had the opportunity to test this personally, but it is. Now, I will also say that on this point, I want to mention that there is a story from Joseph Smith where he gives other ways to detect angels. These aren't the only ways to detect true angels from devils. So as mentioned in the beginning, he tells the story of a man who claimed to see an angel, but when he described the angel's clothes, Joseph Smith knew that wasn't a real angel, because angels don't dress like that. He said that kind of clothing doesn't exist in heaven. They don't wear that. So we know that's not an angel. There's another story of a woman. Her husband had been called on a mission, I think to the southern states. This was when they were in Kirtland. And they were he was called to a mission down in the south. And she said an angel appeared to her in her dreams, told her to go out into the woods where they would meet again. So she goes to the woods, the angel appears to her and tells her, warn your husband not to go more than 100 miles from Kirtland, because he'll be destroyed if he does. She went to Joseph Smith and asked him about it, and she described the angel with sandy-colored hair. And Joseph Smith said, that's not an angel. Now, not only did he contradict what Joseph Smith, as the prophet, had already revealed from God, which also tells you he's not an angel, but he had colored hair. And Joseph Smith said that angels, when they appear, they do not have colored hair. Because of the glory of the angel, if the light that comes from them is so bright, so resplendent, so glorious, that the only color we can see from it is white. And so if an angel appears to you and it has colored hair, you know it's not an angel, because it's not true glory that it is displaying. Now that's not in the scriptures. I read that in the scriptural teachings of the prophet Joseph Smith, as compiled by Joseph Fielding Smith, maybe Joseph, I get those two confused. But you can read about it there. But so there are other ways to detect whether it is a real angel or not. But this is, if the visual cues are all there and you're not quite sure, offer your hand, and these are the 3 responses that you will get. If it's an angel, they'll shake your hand, you'll be good, you'll feel that firm grip. If it's a ministering spirit of a just man, they will refuse, because they're not allowed to deceive. It's not in their nature to deceive. They wouldn't even attempt it. But a devil will attempt to deceive you, so he will shake your hand, but you won't feel it, because he is a spirit. And we leave that here. We continue this in chapter 30 next, so I will see you there.